Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis. I wanted to do a quick addendum to this video before it gets started. Someone had commented on the YouTube video, the original version, that I was somehow downplaying or degrading people that are more technician oriented, sole proprietors, small business owners, that sort of thing. Let me categorically say that's not true. I apologize if the video would indicate that, but what I'm trying to communicate is that I want everyone to think like an entrepreneur or be future-minded. Whether you're a sole proprietor, whether you're running your business purely as a technician, you're totally cool with that, or whatever, at some point you have to be thinking about the future. Because unless you're going to go to work for someone else, but if you're working for yourself, at some point you're going to need to think about that stuff. You know, you're not going to be out polishing 10 cars a week when you're 55, 60 years old. So that's what I'm trying to communicate, that even if you're acting as a technician, thinking like an entrepreneur is going to be a better long-term plan for you. And so I think that's still the point of this video. If for some reason it seems like I'm downplaying small business owners, I'm not. I've been a small business owner for 17 plus years, 18 plus years. So that's definitely not the case. So I hope you enjoy the video. Feel free to leave me a comment, seek clarification, see what I'm really thinking, that sort of thing. I appreciate your time. Thanks. Are you an entrepreneur or are you a technician? I'm Kevin Davis from Detailer's Helper, and today I'll help you answer that question. I was in Southern California a couple weeks ago doing a training, and I thought the information that I shared there would also be useful to pretty much anybody that's either already started or currently running a detailing business, or really any business at all. The information in the E-Myth Revisited is really good. It talks a lot about differentiating between being an entrepreneur and thinking that way and being a technician and thinking like that. If you're a small-time operator, if you're sort of a one-man shop, two-man shop, these kind of concepts will very much gel. They'll sort of overlap and all that. So sometimes you're the entrepreneur wearing that hat, sometimes you're a technician wearing that hat. But what I want to distinguish is actually thinking like an entrepreneur versus thinking like a technician in your business. Because if you're just thinking like a technician, then you're basically an employee. You're your own employee, you're self-employed, but effectively the business is running you, not the other way around. So when I did my talk the other day, I basically went through and sort of highlighted some of the things that differentiate between being an entrepreneur and being a technician. So rather than trying to memorize all these, I just wrote them down. So I'll read a few of these for you. Being an entrepreneur includes stuff like being a visionary, planning, being the employer, being an owner, being a strategist, being forward thinker, and being a resourcer. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. From a technician standpoint, you've got worker, implementer, employee, even if you're self-employed, not the employer. You're task-oriented, you're present-oriented versus future-oriented, and you're a resource. And so the difference between resourcer and resources is and a resource is that thinking like an entrepreneur, you gather resources in order to make your goals come true, in order to meet the business goals that you've set forth, whether it be revenue, location, growth, whatever those happen to be in terms of what you see as success for your business. And those all are a little bit different. Some things are purely financial, some things aren't, more lifestyle, that sort of thing. But you are the gatherer of resources. If you're thinking like a technician, then you're actually the resource. You're the guy that's cleaning the carpets, getting things done, very task-oriented, going list by list by list item, and taking care of those things. So you think more like a resource than a resourcer. There's some things that you want to consider when you're thinking like an entrepreneur. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I may have said that before. I say that a lot. I've used that quote several times. But basically, just because you're able to do something in your business doesn't necessarily mean that you should. Good example is something as simple as bookkeeping. That can eat up a lot of time, especially if computer skill set, if bookkeeping skill set, accounting skill set, or all that is a little bit lacking for you, or it's just something that you hate doing. If you have to spend 8 to 10 hours a week working through the accounting and bookkeeping part of your business, and you could probably pay someone $25 an hour or even $20 an hour, whatever that happens to be, to get that done, then it doesn't make sense for you to be doing that. And that's part of thinking like an entrepreneur. Could I spend $200 a week, $200 a month, whatever that number happens to be for your own needs. If I could spend that money to have someone else do that, what could I do with that time? And typically what it means is you can actually strategize, plan, and grow your business with that time instead of spending that time doing very task-oriented activities. And so just because you can doesn't mean you should. There's tons of other examples. And even as a detailer, that may be as simple as, hiring someone out to do the basic details, do quick washes, something like that. That could be high profit margin for you, even after you hire that out, so that you can do other things like sales and customer relations. And if you like doing, high-end correction, coatings and that kind of stuff, and you want to be the one doing that, then that allows you to do that as well. There's some discussion on whether or not you should be doing that either. But that's just part of that equation. So basically, in the short term, especially when you're a small-time operator, those two things are going to constantly evolve around each other. So you may be an entrepreneur at night after you've done all your detailing through the day. If you're just a one-person shop, you obviously have to be a technician through the day. But as you're doing the technical work, as you're doing the technician type work, thinking like an entrepreneur, how can I improve my efficiency? How can I improve my process? How can I, looking around and saying, how can I improve my sales? If I deal with this customer in this way, if I have this customer loyalty program, whatever that happens to be. So that's the thought process that you want to go through as an entrepreneur versus, this carpet, 2 by 2 foot piece of carpet in front of me is dirty. I clean it. I move on to the seats. I move on to this. That's the difference between the two, so that your technician hat is on during the day, but you're always thinking entrepreneurially. And then in the evenings or after whatever your schedule looks like, you put that definitive entrepreneur hat on and you go through those activities to help you grow your business. And that may be strategizing, planning, and even implementing some of those ideas that run through your head while you're doing the technician stuff. So those two things will meet occasionally, especially for small time guys. But I've been an entrepreneur for probably almost 20 years now. I run several businesses. I've said that before, and my brain just works a little bit differently than what some other than someone that doesn't think entrepreneurially. We talked about this in the class. Someone asked the question, "Can you train a technician to be an entrepreneur?" And the answer that I had was maybe. That's not very definitive, but in some cases, I think that your brain has to work a specific way in order to think like an entrepreneur. It requires a little bit of vision, a little bit of craziness, some planning, non-aversion to risk, because being an entrepreneur is risky. Really understanding how to mitigate risk, how to evaluate risk, how to do the things that may be scary, but the payoff is there, versus thinking more like a technician, which is very methodical, very logistical. Just do this, do this, do this, do this. If your brain works that way, and you're constantly trying to make something work for your business, and you're not seeing any growth, you're not seeing things come to fruition, you may just be better off not going down this entrepreneurial path. Even though you can be self-employed and you can own your own business, from a pure lifestyle, stress, long-term standpoint, that may not be the right place. We're all made differently. There are definitely places in this world for technicians. We don't need everybody to be an entrepreneur. But you may be able to thrive in a position under an entrepreneur. For example, someone that wants to own and buy detailing shops, but doesn't have the skill set to actually run it as a manager. Great position to be in. You can make quite a lot of money doing that. Let someone else take the risk, and you can do the implementation stuff. You can do the technician stuff, and you can just make it happen. And so that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you just because you don't think that way. But I want to point out that being a small business owner does not necessarily make you an entrepreneur, and vice versa. Entrepreneurs typically think a little bit differently and do things differently than the typical employee would. So thought I'd clarify that for you. Really would suggest, again, that you go back and read that book. It'll sort of go through some stuff like the McDonald's story and replicating business ideas and that kind of thing. But the takeaway from this video is think like an entrepreneur really do some sort of soul searching and figuring out whether or not you're running your business like an entrepreneur. And if you're not, do you have the mindset and skill set to take that next step to start thinking like an entrepreneur, even if you're doing the technician stuff, or if you're just better suited at being a technician, and then you can sort of define that path. And don't be afraid to take a different path from whatever you're taking, whether it be towards more entrepreneurial activities or more towards technician activities. I'm Kevin Davis, doing what I do so you can do what you do better. Hope you guys have a great day. If you have not already checked out the new HD belts, the new Little Helper belts, our new standard belts, and the new odor control stuff, we've been launching a ton of products. I would love for you to check those out. Help support this company and what I do so that I can continue to do the things that I need to do for you. It's www.detailershelper.com. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.